Hi guys, interviews with Keir Starmer on Brexit are extremely frustrating to listen to. Now, when Boris Johnson signed the TCA a few years ago, the post-Brexit trade deal, I said at the time that Starmer should allow a free vote in Parliament. Instead, he whipped his MPs to back it. When asked about the single market and the customs union, he has repeated ad nauseum, "We're not going back into the single market and the customs union." Now, all of this rhetoric could be to achieve two things. Avoid talking about Brexit because anything negative about it will open him up to attack from the Tories and their friends in the media. It could also turn off people who voted for Brexit in 2016 and Boris Johnson to get it done in 2019. But there's another problem with Starmer's position on Brexit.
I simply want to ask you again if you'll forgive me about this. You see, in this, the Keir Starmer manifesto from 2019, it says, we need to defend migrants' rights and argue for free movement in the EU. Doesn't that tell you whose side you're really on when it comes to the debate about migration?
Well, let's take free movement. That was part and parcel of our membership of the EU. We've left the EU. Freedom of movement is over. And there's no case for bringing it
You
back.
argued for it after Brexit.
I said as we were negotiating the exit from the EU. But that's done. We're out, we're not going back, and therefore we're not having freedom of movement. What we need is fair rules, robust rules, properly applied, so that we can have the managed immigration that we need for our economy, but not lose control, which is the position under this government. We've got record numbers at the moment because we haven't got the skills.
Okay, so what's frustrating about this is, look, credit where it's due, he's completely correct when he says that, look, this was my position in 2019, but the situation changed. It was during a period when the negotiations were taking place, and I wanted freedom of movement protected. That's true, and credit to him for that. What's frustrating is that towards the end of the clip, he said, well, halfway through, he said, there's no case for bringing back freedom of movement. And then at the end of the clip, he says, because we have a skills shortage in respect to what the Tories are doing. So there are record numbers because we don't have the skills. So we don't have the staff available, but at the same time, there isn't a case for bringing back freedom of movement. Now, when he says there isn't a case, I'm not exactly sure what he means by that. There isn't an economic case, there isn't a political case. What is he talking about? He never specifies. So we have to assume, we have to fill in the gaps ourselves. So is there a political case? Yes. If there is a skill shortage, you need to tell the public, look, in order for you to have your grandparent or relative or whatever looked after in a care home, we need staff. In order to rebuild the NHS to bring down the waiting list, we need staff. In order for us to grow our own food, we need staff. And at the moment, we don't have those things. We don't have the staff necessary to grow the economy, to bring down the waiting list, to provide care for citizens. So we have to bring people in. There's the case for bringing back freedom of movement. Now, the caveat, of course, is freedom of movement will be one way because the UK is no longer a member of the European Union. British citizens have already lost that right thanks to Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson and the Brexiteers. So freedom of movement could be brought back or something like it, but it will be, of course, one way. There is the case for it. We need to grow our economy. We need to lift people out of poverty. We need to rebuild the NHS, infrastructure, all of these things. We need to build hundreds of thousands of houses per year. In order to achieve that, you need workers. There's a staffing shortage in construction. So you need to bring people in. Now, in order to bring them in, you need to have something like freedom of movement, and you also need to increase wages. So you need to create incentives for people. You can't just say, okay, we have freedom of movement now. People are not going to come if there isn't an environment for them to thrive. So there is a case, a political case for bringing back freedom of movement. Maybe maybe Keir Starmer doesn't want to talk about it because of people like Farage. They will jump on this because the Tories will jump on it and because the media will jump on it. But there is a case. There is a political case and there is an economic one. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.